Hello ninjas and ninjettes, and welcome to another episode of the Exposure Ninja Digital Marketing Podcast. My name's Tim Cameron Kitchen, best-selling digital marketing author and head ninja at Exposure Ninja. This podcast is all about helping businesses to generate more leads and sales from your website. And in this episode, we're talking about calls to action. So calls to action are, in some ways, the defining characteristic of your website's performance. So how well your website turns a visitor into a lead or a sale is largely defined by how appealing your call to action is. So in this episode, myself and Lozz, who's one of the ninjas here at Exposure Ninja, we're discussing what makes a good CTA. We're talking through some examples and giving you a bit of a process that you can follow to identify what your call to action should be. If you want more information about this, we actually made some videos about this inside our Marketing U training platform. So if you go to marketingu.ninja, and that's marketing and then the letter U.ninja, there are some videos inside Marketing U which will help you to identify what a good call to action could be and to improve the performance of your website in general, whether it's getting more traffic to your site, improving conversion rates, doing follow-up email marketing, loads of stuff in there, even down to positioning and how you use messaging across your business. So check out marketingu.ninja if you are interested. Otherwise, without further ado, let's get stuck in.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Exposure Ninja podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing designing the perfect call to action. So we have mentioned this in some previous episodes. We talked about how having a strong call to action on a web page can be really useful in order to get more traffic and to get more people signing up for your newsletter or anything like that. In this episode, we're going to make sure that we're getting that perfect C2A that's going to be really, really good, and it's going to give us the best possible results. The first thing, do you want to just give us a quick overview of a call to action, Tim, and maybe an example or two if you've got any?
Cool, yeah, I have some examples. So call to action is the main goal that your page has. So every page, whether you're a service company or an e-commerce business, every page on your site has a goal, and the goal is usually, if you're a service business, to generate a lead. So we talked in episode 4, I think it was, about CTAs and how we need to all have like free consultation and a nice little contact form on every page. And a load of the sites that we get sent have these contact forms on now, which is, it's just, hey, you get a free consultation, name, email, phone number, message. And that's not enough to get the conversion. So we need to think in a bit more detail about our CTAs. We need to put ourselves in our customers' shoes, and we need to make sure that we're not just assuming that because we're offering a free consultation, we don't need to sell it. Just because something's free doesn't mean that we don't need to sell it and it's just going to sell itself. We still need to work really, really hard at getting people to request our CTA. So examples of CTAs can be book a free consultation, but with some very specific result that they're going to get from this and a very specific instruction about what they need to do. It could be request your free website and marketing review, which is the CTA that we use on our website. If you're an e-commerce business, it could be request free delivery on your first order or get some sort of free gift or something along those lines.
Okay, yeah. So I think like you say, since we last talked about this subject, what was that, sort of nearly a year ago now, I think it does seem like, there's a lot more websites that are offering something for free. So I think people are kind of hearing that message that, a free something, consultation, free delivery, that kind of thing is a really great way to entice customers. But what we're going to be talking about, in detail today is there's more that you need to be doing than just offering that free thing. So the first thing that we need to kind of talk about is some of the actual elements that make up a really, really good CTA. So what kind of things would you want to include, to differentiate yourselves from maybe everyone else that is offering the same kind of free consultation, but not doing it that well?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we need to think about is making the bait really, really attractive. So the free consultation is cool, but one example that we use, and I was just recording a Marketing U video, which used this example. We built this solicitor lead generation site, and then if you compare that to other solicitor sites which offer a free consultation, now the CTA site that we use on the site that we built says, find out how much you could claim, and it means that people can fill in their details and actually get some information about what their claim could be worth and how much their compensation could be. Whereas most solicitor sites will just say, contact us, or something that's just completely, soft. So by saying, find out how much you could claim, we're making that bait much more attractive. That's so much more compelling to someone because they see an actual benefit from it. So I think the kind of switch that we need to make when we're thinking about consultations is thinking, what's the outcome that somebody is actually left with? Are they going to get a strategic plan in this free consultation? Are they going to get some sort of assessment which would give them personalized information? Are they, even if it's just get a free quote, at least then they're left with something. They have something to take away with them, which is a price. So firstly, think about what's the first step in the sales process and what do people actually take away? Like I think of people, when you go to a party when you're a kid and you get that party bag and you've got stuff in your party bag. So you imagine the leads coming into your business, having this consultation and then walking away. Like what's in their party bag? What have they actually got, which has taken them closer to their goals?
Yeah. So the thing we're talking about there then is, something is the benefit to the customer in terms of this call to action. So one thing that I always think is kind of interesting is that a lot of businesses will be focusing on the benefit for them as a business. So rather than, sign up to our email list in order to get X, Y, and Z, they'll be just saying, hey, can give us your email. And obviously, it can serve the same purpose on the website, but one is kind of focusing on what's in it for the customer and one's focusing what's in it for the business. So I think, like you say, it's really important that they mention a strong benefit in there.
Yeah, the newsletter is a perfect example because, sign up for the money saving tips and we'll give you our top tips on how to do X and you'll get this free email course which will show you how to do Y, or sign up for our free newsletter. Well, sign up for our free newsletter has just no perceived value at all because a newsletter is just email spam. The reality is that what they actually get when they sign up for something like that doesn't actually need to be any different at all. So it's literally just how you position that stuff that you're going to be sending out. So if you're going to be letting people know about your latest deals, then we're going to be sending them advice for saving money or, whatever it is. So it's just positioning and it's just selling based on what these people actually want, rather than just being super lazy and just saying, hey, sign up for this and just expecting people to openly give us their email addresses. People are much more resistant to that than they used to be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's the thing, really. If these businesses have already taken our advice and they're offering a free consultation or they're offering, a free gift or whatever it might be, they do have that sort of lead generation offer there. Clearly, they're able to provide a benefit to the customer. Otherwise, they wouldn't be offering whatever it is. So, like you say, it's just about making sure that that's really apparent in that call to action.
Often people say, maybe it's the dentist and they say, yeah, we don't really want to give away free consultations. Well, that's absolutely fine. And then you ask them, what is your sales process? Okay, so the first thing that people will do is they'll ring us up and then what happens? And then we'll talk to them to see if they're a good fit. Okay, great. So that is the consultation. So the consultation doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're giving away a bunch of advice or you're giving away a whole ton of stuff. It can simply be that it's a conversation between you and the lead to decide whether you two are a good fit, because there's still value in that for the customer, because they still get an indication of, how you could help them and what that's actually going to mean. You don't actually have to deliver your core thing for free. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that conversation, there's a way of positioning it that actually has value for people.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people underestimate the value of a personalized response. So like you say, sort of you might not feel like you're giving that customer anything by having a phone call in which you decide whether or not you can even perform the service they're asking about. But for a customer that's sort of, browsing about on the internet and trying to find, the solution to their problem, the fact that you're willing to discuss it with them is actually quite valuable. So I think, yeah, like you say, positioning that in the right way is super, super strong.
Yeah, I mean, have a look at your competitors. The thing about most website CTAs is if you had 10 websites open in your browser, there's very little incentive to give your details to any one of them. You're not often able to tell the difference between the different businesses based on their websites in many cases. So it's simply, you don't have to be amazing to be the winner. And like you say, just offering to have a conversation with people, but also removing the uncertainty, which is the second element of a compelling call to action, is it's low risk. By telling people exactly what's going to happen, removing any uncertainty that might be in their minds about what's going to happen, because that's a massive, massive conversion blocker. If people aren't sure what's going to happen when they stick their details in, you're asking them to just take a punt. And that's quite a risky thing to do on a first date. So you really just want to say, okay, you're going to stick in your details here. We're going to contact you to arrange this free thing. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what you're going to be left with. That's really compelling. So yeah, it's just remove the risk, take on all of that risk yourself, minimize the amount of info that you need to ask for as well, which is something I'm sure we can discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love that when websites do that, when anybody does that, if they explain what the process is going to be like. If you enter your details here, we'll give you a call and we'll discuss your case with you. That kind of stuff really reassures me. It makes me think, hey, yeah, like even if they can't help me, at least I'm going to be able to have this conversation and I'll know for sure, kind of thing. So not having that risk of, oh, am I in the right place is super, super compelling for me, definitely.
Gary Halbert always used to say, like, when he'd send out a sales letter to someone, he wouldn't say, call us on blah, blah, blah. He'd say, call us, and Jeanette is going to pick up the phone and she's going to ask you this, this, and this. And then she's going to take your details and then she's going to send out the thing to you. And it's just, most people think there's no reason to go into that level of detail, but actually, if you're asking someone to trust your business, there really is. And that sort of detail helps because it makes you feel more trustworthy. So yeah, the more detail you can give around that, it might seem irrelevant to you, but to actually someone who's scared or someone they don't have to be conscious that they're scared of it. It's just like, oh, this, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to do this. Another thing that's really important when we're trying to remove risk for people is requesting too much information. A common mistake that we'll see being made on CTAs, and there's an example of that we can talk through, is where you ask for absolutely loads of fields in the form. So you're asking name, email, phone, you're asking income, you're asking, a whole bunch of stuff which you don't need to know, like mother's maiden name and kids' names, stuff around contact details that you're not actually going to follow up. So if you're not going to if you're not going to cold call someone who puts in their details, then don't ask for phone number. It's completely pointless because the only thing it's going to do is suppress response. If you're not going to make decisions based on their income or based on how much they have to spend, then don't ask for it because it's pointless, right? So only ask for the stuff you need, minimize the number of fields that you're asking on that contact form. And that's another way of kind of reducing the risk for people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, each additional piece of information you ask for is going to result in some kind of drop off in the number of people that, can be bothered to fill it out. Even if it's just the time factor, let alone having to make that decision. Do I want to give this company my phone number or not? Just the, this form takes, 10 minutes to fill out now because of all these extra fields. Yeah, minimizing that information, hugely important, I would say.
Yeah. And if you imagine your audience is on iPhone, right, or they're on their phone, and if it asks for name, email, phone, and then a message, well, name, email, phone are going to be auto-filled by the browser. So that they've just filled in the form in like half a second. So the more stuff you ask them, which actually requires their brain to be engaged, then, that kind of makes it a little bit more tricky for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing that a lot of businesses that I've spoken to seem to have a problem with is, they'll say, oh yeah, but that information is going to be required for our sales process. We need to ask that. Often, I'm go back to them and say, well, do you need to ask that right now when they're just going onto the website? I thought the next stage of the process is you're going to have a phone call with them. And they'll say, yeah, we're going to have a phone call with them, but we need to find out, whatever it might be. And you say, well, actually, that question that you've asked in that contact form would be a much better question to ask over the phone to put that customer, at ease, to make sure that, you're providing the right kind of service for them. So yeah, have a think about whether or not, this is the correct place to ask for that information, even if, if you need to at all, kind of thing.
Yeah. One example of a site that we worked on the CTA for. So this site, you can book coach trips. And we said, okay, add this CTA to your homepage because it's going to increase your conversions. And it massively has. They're getting a conversion every half hour now. It's just ridiculous. But interestingly, they ask for, in fact, let me just get it up because it's really useful. They ask for way more fields than we would normally ask if we wanted to absolutely maximize lead volume. But the reason they ask so many fields is because actually they don't want to maximize lead volume because it takes some time to put together a quote. So their quote form on their homepage asks for name, email, pickup date, pickup location, group size, and then phone number, return date, destination, and additional notes. So we've got 9 fields that we're asking for there.
And some of those, the customer's going to have to actually think about. They're going to have to, it's not something that they could just easily autofill. They're going to have to think about that before being able to fill it in.
Exactly. And things like pickup date, I might not even have it in mind yet. If I'm organizing a hen do for my girls, right, I might not even know what date yet because I haven't even, I'm just doing the research. So I might not have that information. Now, for these guys, as I say, they're getting enough website traffic and they're getting enough leads anyway that they can afford to suppress response and say, we don't want anyone who's just curious about getting quotes. So they only want the people that are ready to do something now, which is fair enough for them. But if they wanted to just maximize lead volume, they'd make it really simple. Name, email, optional phone number, where are you going and how many of them are you? And then you just have that as a message field so that people could just dump whatever info they wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that raises a really good point. I mean, so in general, obviously, we're going to want to be collecting as many leads as possible. Obviously, that's going to be better for sales, and especially for a new business that's kind of freshly starting up. But it does raise a really interesting question about how do we get the best quality leads? How do we get the leads that are likely to convert and just, get rid of those time wasters? So yeah, I think that, there's a few other things that we can do, isn't there? As well as, just adding on extra fields, we can also sort of charge them a fee for that initial contact kind of thing, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So there's kind of two ways to disqualify people. We can either raise the barrier to entry or we can add like eagerness filters, I call them. So raising the barrier to entry, if we want to disqualify some people from getting our CTA, then we could say they must meet certain criteria, right? So they must have, if you're a B2B, then they must have a certain revenue, or you might want to ask qualifying questions. So, how many people are you taking on your coach trip? And you're asking them that so that they can kind of disqualify themselves and say, I'm not too sure yet. There's only one or two of us. Another way that you can raise the barrier to entry is through the implied positioning on the website. So one of the first websites I ever built was for a really high-end AV company in London. And these guys installed like home cinemas for Russian billionaires, right? It was when they're installing a home cinema, it's going to cost at least 100 grand, probably between 100 and 5 million. And it's going to take, years, and it's going to be amazing. And what they were scared of is they were scared of the guy down the road typing in home cinema, asking them to come and fit a TV bracket in his kitchen for 100 quid. And they're like, we don't want, because even sending someone out to do the quote or even pick up the phone to talk to him, we're already going to have lost money. So we don't want any of those business people. So what we did there is by using really high-end imagery on the site and by having, pictures of beautiful homes and one Hyde Park and all this amazing stuff, as soon as you landed on that site, it oozed so much perceived quality that if you're looking for a TV bracket to be hung on the wall, in somewhere that's not one Hyde Park, you'd feel like an absolute idiot for asking these guys because the perception was so massive. So you can disqualify people without kind of doing it overtly, just by the positioning on your website. And I guess that's just kind of knowing your audience and being consistent with the sort of people that you want on your site as well. And then the other way to disqualify people is to add these eagerness filters. So for example, with our website review, we ask for name and email address immediately as soon as people land on the page. And then once they've given us that info, we send them through to a questionnaire. And this questionnaire is actually pretty long. So what we're doing there is we're capturing the name and email immediately. So we've got them signed up to our mailing list. So that's great. So we can market to them and stuff like that. But then before we do the review for them, before we put all the time in, we're sending them through to a follow-up questionnaire, which is much longer. So by doing that, we're saying, okay, we're not going to do the review for you if you can't be bothered to fill in a few bits of information. So we're kind of disqualifying people that way. And then, of course, if they don't fill in the questionnaire, they get follow-up emails which say, hey, you haven't filled in the questionnaire yet. Are you sure? Because this review is going to be amazing. But at the end of the day, if they can't be bothered to spend 5 minutes doing that, we don't really want to spend half an hour to an hour doing a review for them because they're clearly not serious about this stuff.
Yeah. It's not a case that we're sort of trying to pester people, like you say, with the follow-up emails. It's just obviously, like you say, if they're not willing to put in a little bit of time and effort, then it's probably not worth our time and effort.
So yeah, disqualification is really important. But like you said, most businesses, they're focused on absolutely maximizing their lead volume. There's nothing that says you've got to follow up with every lead that you get. So I'd always opt for get as many as you can. And then whether you have someone that filters through them or whatever. But if you start with the most, then it gives you the best chance of success. We've had people who filled in our review form who have given us absolutely bare minimum info. Some of them can't even be bothered to fill in their websites. You have to go and find them. But actually, it's the reason that they haven't done that is just because they're super busy, they're super successful. And actually they end up being really decent clients as a result of that. So it's not always just because they can't, because they don't want to give you all of their info, their shitty leads. Sometimes they can be good. So I'd always just say maximize, just get as many as you possibly can. But every business has to look at how much time you have available and what your goals are.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that we've, kind of gone back and forth on, isn't it? Obviously, we've offered the reviews totally free, and you can ask whatever information you provide is enough, and we've gone, paid reviews as well to try and weed out people and that kind of thing. So we've had a few different ways that we've targeted that in the past. And it really does just depend on see what kind of leads you're getting, and if you're getting the wrong kinds of leads, then maybe have a look at some of those disqualification questions.
Yeah, and if your volume is such that you can't maintain or you can't keep up with every lead that's coming in, then it's time to disqualify. But until then, what's the problem with talking to as many people as possible?
Yeah, definitely. And one quick thing, just if somebody is out there and they're thinking, hey, maybe I've not got enough of the questions filled out on the Exposure Ninja review, but I still want some help or something like that, then you could always sign up to the Digital Marketing Mastermind Facebook group, and we'd be absolutely happy to give you help and guidance on there instead. So that can be a good way to do things too, if you don't feel you're ready to take that step on the review. There's a couple of things which I wanted to ask you about. So we've talked a bit about what makes a good call to action in terms of benefits and low risk and that kind of thing. There's a couple of specific things. So I'm thinking about some of the visual designs of a call to action on a web page. So yeah, do you have any guidance there? Do you think there's some guiding principles that we could be following to make sure that we've got a decent call to action just in terms of looks?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, just like anything online, it needs to look good, because people's perception of what they're going to get when they fill in the box is to a large extent defined by the look of the box itself, as basic as that sounds. So if it looks absolutely crap, if the formatting is broken, the lines are, the fields are all wonky and different lengths and stuff, there's a perceived quality that's associated with that. So I'd make sure it looks really sharp as well. If you're giving away something which is like a guide or a book or something like that, it always helps to have a picture, a mock-up of it. Now, if you're giving away an ebook, it doesn't have to be like a picture of an ebook. It could be a picture of a real book and could make it look really, really good. So obviously, anything that you can do with the design which raises the perceived value is going to help. You want to make sure that the box stands out. So it has to complement the colors on your page, but maybe use a slightly different color. If you look at Amazon as an example, Amazon's buy now button, that is the perfect CTA. It's got the yellow or the orange if it's the one click thing. It stands out loads, but it's still using colors which are consistently used across Amazon. It's separated out. There's a border, there's white space around it. It's very clearly exactly where you would expect it to be. So if in doubt, look at Amazon. They're pretty good at converting people. Just copy that.
So I think some of the things that I was thinking about is, like you say, make it stand out on the page and have a color which stands out on the page. Some of the other things which I was thinking about in terms of call to action is positioning it in the right place on the page. So things like having it above the fold. That's something which we've discussed a few times in the past, isn't it? Making sure that it's somewhere that people tend to look on the page as well. So, top right hand corner tends to be pretty good in terms of, a call to action and that kind of thing as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed our website team doing recently, which is killer, is that they'll have the CTA box in the top right hand corner. But then as you scroll down the page, it will follow you. So it will kind of be sticky, and they'll leave a bit of space on the right hand side of the page so that the box can kind of follow down the page. And that's really good, because if you think about when someone lands on a page, yes, some people are going to be ready to convert now and they're going to be ready to fill in that form now, but others, they're not even in that place yet because they're still identifying, is this page right for me? And then as they scroll down the page and they do a bit of reading, then they become ready to convert. So previously, whereas we might have had, separate buttons or separate forms further down the page for these people, now we've just got the box that follows down the page. So I think that's a kind of really elegant way of keeping it in mind at all times. On mobile, one of the things that we'll do is we'll have a sticky call now button. So call now will often be the CTA on mobile for a local business, because you just want people to just quickly pick up the phone. So by making that sticky at the bottom of the page, it's always visible. And as they're scrolling down, it's still there at the bottom of their window. So anytime they see enough information that they know they want to convert, they can just click and then they're straight on the phone with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point because, I read an article recently saying that on average, people read about 60 to 80% of a blog post before they navigate away and they do something else. And, if you've got your call to action at the bottom of the blog post, after the, just a summary at the end saying, hey, if you enjoyed this blog post, then maybe you should, check out our services, whatever it might be. If that call to action, the first time it shows up is once they've read the whole thing, and most people read 60 to 80%, then, quite a lot of people aren't even seeing a call to action. Whereas, like you say, if that follows you down the page, then it's always visible. It's, it's the most important thing for that individual page. So, we want to make sure that everybody's going to get the chance to see it, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look at Amazon. I don't know if they're still doing it, but they went through a phase where they were testing making as soon as you scroll down, the buy now button just went sticky to the top of the window. So it's just always there, a bit like you might have a sticky menu. They just made their buy now button sticky, which I think is another really cool way, because if you're right down there in those reviews and you're reading the product reviews on desktop, actually you're quite a long way from the buy now button, aren't you? So rather than forcing someone to go all the way back up, if they see something else that they like while they're on that page, or they get distracted or whatever, you could risk losing them. So you always want to make it as easy as possible, I guess, make the minimum amount of movement that their finger has to make to convert. If you could just kind of give them a physical button which came out the screen and just sat under their finger so they could just press it as soon as they're ready to convert, that would be optimal. So you just want to get as close to that as you possibly can.
And last couple of questions is in terms of visual design for call to action. What is your opinion on things like CTAs that are in a pop-up window, or CTAs that flash, in order to attract people's attention, that kind of thing? Good idea, bad idea?
You just need to test it and you need to look at the metrics. My concern with pop-up CTAs, if they just pop up on their own, is people's immediate repulsion to that. If you watch the Hotjar recordings, or you sit down and watch someone, and then as soon as the thing pops up, they're just going for the X, or they're going for escape, or they're hitting back on their browser. So anything that makes that kind of visceral reaction instantly probably isn't a good idea. Obviously, exceptions to that, if it's like an exit pop, so someone motions to get out of the page and then you have a pop-up with something that offers them something free to kind of get them to stick around, you're going to lose that person anyway, so don't be too worried about annoying them. If there's something flashing, I guess as long as it's attracting their attention in a good way and it's not something that they just want to shut down, then that could be okay. But just split test it, like test two versions, use Google Analytics content experiments and have a go and see if it increases your conversion rate.
Cool. Yeah, good advice, definitely. So next thing I wanted to discuss is the kind of psychology behind some of the text that you might use in a call to action. So there's different ways that you can phrase the same sort of thing and get sort of different results. So I'm thinking about things like active or passive language in a call to action. So this is something which I've seen, is that people make this mistake. So, if you say something along the lines of free trial available, then, if somebody, is interested, then they might click on a button that says free trial available. If it says claim your free trial now, then, somebody's much more likely to do that because, you're telling them what to do. And also, it's a strong statement. It's saying this is what you should do. So yeah, is that something you agree with? Do you think, making that sort of language change?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to test. I mean, the other thing that you see people doing is not just saying claim your free trial now and then a button that says click here, but it says, click below to request your free trial, and actually telling people exactly what to do. Whether that has a measurable impact on conversions, I don't know, but I think it could be quite interesting. When you're running Facebook ads, what would be your preference? Would it be to go for the more active language, I'm guessing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think especially for Facebook, obviously you want to make sure you're guiding that action as much as possible. So yeah, I would definitely always go for something that was much more active. But I do wonder if that is something that might differ between a web page and PPC, because obviously PPC, you've got less time in order to attract their attention and get them to do what you want. So
yeah, my gut feeling is also there's a kind of positioning difference as well. If you were to say, if you're a business that maybe you're playing a bit of a takeaway thing and you're playing on scarcity, then you might not want to be so direct in your language. You might want to say something like, for example, when we did that landing page for that dating site and they were really struggling to get any conversions, super high-end matchmaking. And what we did there is we said, apply for inclusion. We used text around the whole thing, which was basically, you're not going to be good enough to get in. There's no point even trying. Apply, if you fancy taking a punt, then you can apply for inclusion in the world's most exclusive or London's most exclusive matchmaking site. And it was amazing for conversions because we played it as a takeaway rather than saying, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I don't know whether there'd be whether that, if we were using more direct language there, that might impact it. I'm not too sure. So there might be a positioning thing as well. But again, interesting thing to test.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point.
If you were going to go for one or the other, right, you'd probably choose the direct language first of all, wouldn't you? And then you might split test less direct, or you might split test the takeaway if you weren't getting as good a conversion rate as you like. But, if you had to choose one, you'd go for direct every time, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. I think, direct is kind of the standard, isn't it? And then you try other things. There's a link in our show notes at the bottom with some call to action examples from different websites out there. And one which I like, which does take a more of a sort of backseat approach, that might be kind of similar to what you're talking about. It's a website and their CTA button says launch on the button, and then it says do not press. And they're trying out whether or not that would work, and encourage people to press it. Everybody's sort of an immediate thought is, hey, you can't tell me what to do, and then they want to press that button. So that's one of the more interesting CTAs. So certainly there's other strategies out there other than telling people what to do. So yeah, could be worth trying.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that's also a massive pattern interrupt as well, isn't it? Because you're just completely not expecting to see a button that says do not press.
Totally. There's a couple of other things I wanted to talk about in regards to call to actions for websites versus PPC. And I want to get your opinion on it. So, on a web page, you're going to have, quite a lot of room to talk about all the different benefits of a service or a product. You're going to be able to say, hey, you'll get this and that. The process for, will include this. It's going to be Stacey that's going to give you a phone call in the next 24 hours, all that kind of stuff. And that's a lot harder to do on something like PPC. So do you think that, the way in which you're going to design a CTA, pretty much has to be quite different between those two platforms? Or do you think, all the same rules apply?
Yeah, I think you're completely right. If you look at the metrics on PPC traffic, it tends to have higher bounce rate. It tends to have a lot less patience. So we have to assume that they're probably going to give us a page at most. Normally, we're expecting to see PPC bounce between 50 to 60%. 80% is not uncommon, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's a poorly performing campaign if your conversions are there. So you have to assume that you've got maybe one page to get them. Whereas with organic traffic, if you got a bounce rate of 30, 35, 40%, then you've got maybe 2 or 3 or 4 more pages to build a relationship with someone before you ask them to take the action that you want to take. So you've got to be more direct with PPC. And generally, one of the things that we'll notice works best with PPC is that the entire focus of the page is on the CTA and it's on selling the CTA. Whereas with a normal website where you might be driving organic traffic or whatever, you're probably talking about the service that you offer. And then you've got a CTA, which is talking about if you want to take the next step towards this service or you want to take the next step in the sales process. Obviously, you position it better than that. But if you want to take the next step, then you take this CTA. So when we're running PPC ads, for example, for our own business, the landing page that we're sending people to is selling the free review really, really hard. Whereas when we're sending people through to our website, we're maybe talking about SEO and how it could impact your business. And if you want to, you want to take the first step towards this great benefit, then you might want to claim our free review. So I think you've got less time. You've got people that are much more impatient, more fickle, and more likely to bounce. So you got to sell your CTA a lot harder, I think, for PPC.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the one thing that I think, could be a good comparison is the difference between somebody who's browsing in a shop, doing a bit of window shopping on a Saturday or something, versus, a door-to-door salesman. This is a really different kind of sales pitch. And I think that's the kind of difference that, browsing on a website and a PPC ad kind of has is the same sort of thing. It's got to be immediately interesting. It's got to be immediately grabbing your attention. Whereas, if somebody's browsing through the website and they don't like the call to action on the current page, then maybe it's not for them. Maybe they can go onto a different page on your website and find a service that's more interesting to them. So yeah, really kind of different strategy, I think.
Yeah, there is, and I think people, we see a lot of people when we're looking through analytics driving PPC traffic to their homepage or whatever, and it's no surprise that it's not working for them. Although PPC and organic traffic, they're both coming from Google. Actually, the traffic behaves completely differently, and we do need to be mindful of that. And yeah, you can optimize your service pages so that you can drive PPC traffic to them, definitely. But that needs to be, those pages need to be absolutely shit hot. You can't send PPC traffic through to anything that's not basically perfect, because for whatever reason, it's just harder to please.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So we talked a bit kind of about website CTAs and PPC CTAs. Do you think that it differs for, any other places that we might have a call to action, places like social media, offline ad copy or anything like that? Do you think it differs in those locations again, or are they kind of their own sort of thing?
The main difference is because it's patient, researched, super qualified traffic, which is like organic traffic would tend to be, or it's interruption, fickle, busy traffic, which PPC would tend to be. So I think as long as we put any marketing channel through that filter, then that will kind of guide us. So maybe if we were driving someone through to our website on the podcast, for example, I don't think we'd need to work as hard on the free review thing, because they already have a relationship with us and they're happy to go through some different pages and learn a bit more about our service. So probably as an effective a CTA for us would be, we could just say, go to exposureninja.com to claim your free review, because we know that people are then going to go on the site, they're going to have a look to see how they get the review, and they're going to get it. I would imagine that our conversion rate to that would be pretty similar to it, whereas if we drove people straight to the review page. Whereas for PPC, it's going to be completely different. Like if you say claim your free review in a PPC ad, and then you're not taking them straight through to that page, or the same on Facebook, you're not going to get them. You may as well just send them to Google's homepage. You're not going to get anything at all. So I think if you've got a relationship with people, that buys you a bit of time, whether you've built that relationship offline or in a radio ad or in a podcast or whatever. So you've got to craft your CTA and craft the landing page that you're sending people through to based on how familiar they are with you and how much knowledge they have of your business and the relationship.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good distinction to make, like you say, between somebody that's in a sort of browsing mode or somebody that you're interrupting them. That's, really good distinction to make. And like you say, can guide pretty much any call to action or any copy that you're making for anything, I would say. Before we wrap this podcast up with our own call to action at the end, I wondered if you want to have a quick look through through some of the call to action examples that are on this HubSpot link. See if there's any ones which you like and you think are a really good example of what to do or what not to do. So I think some of these are quite interesting. Let's see if I can find some of the ones which I really enjoyed. Yeah, so Dropbox website is a really nice example of making sure that the kind of visual design makes it stand out on the web page. So their website is basically nearly entirely white on Dropbox's website, and then their CTAs are in a nice blue, which matches their logo and everything. That's, I think, a really good CTA, just because it stands out really well on the page, and your eye is immediately drawn to that. So I think in terms of visual, Dropbox is a pretty good example.
First, let's talk about why it's awesome. And lots of SaaS companies like Dropbox will send people straight through to a sign-up form. It's great, and the form looks great as well. The thing I don't like about this Dropbox CTA is it's asking full name, email, password, and I agree to Dropbox terms for us to check that box. So I'm not too sure about asking for password. I'd love to see them test removing that, because the danger is that someone sees that and goes, oh, I don't have a password. right? It's not saying choose password, it's just saying password. If you're signing up for the first time, you're like, oh, password, don't have one. Right, okay, I'm obviously in the wrong place. So there's a little bit of uncertainty there. So I'd maybe like a little bit of clarification around that. Whether we need to tick a box that says, I agree to Dropbox terms just to sign up for the free trial, I'm not too sure, but maybe there's some other way that they could do this, by signing up, you're agreeing to the Dropbox terms. So rather than actually forcing someone to actively tick it, I don't know. I guess that they've just got their new super expensive legal team and they've made them put that out in there. But I'd just be like, strip that out. Let's just maximize conversions. It's an interesting example. They've also got that box that says sign up free with Google. So you can click on that and then it just links up to your Google account. And then all you have to do is press another button that says allow to give access to Google. So if you just need name and email, you can get people to do that with Google or Facebook, and then they don't even have to put any info in. So that's really nice. The risk is that you're getting an email address which they wouldn't be happy for you to send emails to. So it might not be, the most responsive list that you build with that method, but it certainly speeds up the way that people can sign up. And as we've seen with PayPal, when you offer PayPal and a checkout, that will increase your conversion rate because people don't have to put any info in. They just click a button. So anytime you can just give people buttons to press instead of forms to fill in, you're going to increase conversions.
Yeah, definitely. I think the one thing I was wondering while you were saying that is I wonder if they've tried putting the buttons just above the contact form that you've got to fill in. So rather than enter your full name, email, I wonder if they've tried putting the sign up free with Google, like you say, because that's going to be the easiest way to do it. I wonder if they've tried putting that at the top to, so that the easiest way is nice and visible for people. I wonder if they've tried that as well.
Yeah, my guess would be that they, for whatever reason, that's not their preferred sign up method, which is why they've kind of demoted it to the bottom there. And they've also given it a color which is slightly off the main Dropbox color. So the implication is that that's the second best option. So yeah, there must be some reason why that's not their preferred choice.
Yeah, like you say, it could be, like you say, that email list. Another one which I like on this list is number 11, which is Quick Sprout. So this is a CTA which appears during a blog post. It's highly relevant to the content, which is obviously a really, really great thing. So it's a blog post about SEO, and the CTA says, "Are you doing your SEO wrong? Enter your URL to find out." So I think that's a really interesting CTA because it immediately implies what the benefit of putting in your details is going to be. You're going to find out how good your SEO is, so that's obviously really strong. And I really like the fact that it's literally that's it. You just put in your URL and then click go, and you don't have to, like you say, you don't have to put in username, password, any of that kind of stuff. So I think that's a really good one just in terms of simplicity and also immediately implied benefit as well. So
yeah, and if you're going to model anyone's CTAs, then go for someone like Quick Sprout because they are actually an analytics platform, aren't they? So
yeah. You should hope they're doing the right kind of thing.
The question I would have, and I don't know if they've tested it, but are you doing your SEO wrong, is kind of a question which is very much focused on people who are uncertain over their own skills. So if you're confident in your skills, you might find that patronizing or slightly annoying, or like, no, obviously not. So go away, you prick. So I'd wonder if there'd be another way of phrasing that. But
I think because of the location of this CTA, then they've got the right wording there because this is a pop-up which appears on a blog post about SEO. I think that's an okay CTA. But like you say, if that was something that showed up, on their homepage or something like that, then definitely I would agree. But because of the location, I think they're getting away with it. It's probably my guess on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, good call, Lozz.
There's a couple of examples on here. The websites aren't particularly exciting or anything, but so there's a couple of examples here that are just a time-limited offer. So an offer that has a countdown and says get this free stuff before this offer expires. So that's just a really interesting kind of psychological tactic that people use, and just in terms of time limitation. So not necessarily the website itself that we're interested in, just the fact that using a time limited offer could be a good idea.
Yeah, it can be. I think the important thing there is that the scarcity has to be believable. So there has to be a legitimate reason why it's kind of counting down to end. Often see like the one-click upsell. So you sign up for something and then it says quick, if you buy in the next 10 minutes, you can get this free guide for $7 or whatever. And you're like, well, I know that's kind of bullshit. I know that I could just come back to this page later on and I could get that. So it has to be believable.
Yeah, especially when your sign-up process is an evergreen sign-up process.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, well, people aren't stupid. They know that they haven't, they know that there's not someone there that's just written this page especially for them. I guess the other way of doing that scarcity thing would be to say that there's some limited quantity available. Not really believable for an ebook, but if you're giving away some sort of free consultation, then you could definitely do that. And you can have like a little ticker that goes down. I noticed that there's a bunch of Shopify plugins which now do kind of limited stock scarcity things, even if it's just, even if it's a drop shipping thing where there's just, there's some mountainous warehouse somewhere full of this crap. But when you go on the website, it says, there's 15 of these available left. And there's this massive bar, which is almost to the end because they've sold these trillions and trillions of them and they're down to the last 15 and they're being snapped up every second. So you must buy them now. So there's ways of kind of doing the scarcity so it's believable. So you've got to I think you've got to be careful with it because you've also got that trust thing, which you could potentially damage. But without a doubt, it's a powerful, powerful motivator to get people to do things right now.
No, really, really good advice. I think, nothing really else to add to that one. Next one, I want to get your just initial impression. Scroll down to number 18, appstemplates.com. I think this website looks hideous. I wonder whether or not you agree and if you think that this is an effective CTA or not.
Man, that thing looks horrible. And the other issue that there is with that is that this is a web templates for iPhone apps. So if it looks like crap, of all the businesses that you'd want to look good, it would be templates and design, right? Surely. The other thing about this one is that there's so much going on in that CTA area. You've got these buttons and these little arrows and all of that sort of stuff. It's kind of, like if you just gave me an example template, for example, we've got an app development company that we've done some CTAs for. We've just been doing a call to action, which is request a free consultation. We'll show you how much you could save versus going through, these external booking companies, which everyone in this market is having to go through. So the whole pitch is like, are you sick of paying these guys a ton of money when you could be taking that money yourself? Get your free consultation. We'll show you how much you could be saving. And it's just simple and quick and really easy to understand. So I think if you're kind of having to give that much information about what they need to do, then it might be a little bit of a stretch too far. They're also charging for this thing as well. So I don't know whether it's their homepage CTA or what, but
yeah, I think that it's a really weird example. Just obviously so that everybody on the podcast knows what we're looking at here. This is appstemplates.com. It's a website which sells templates for making your own app. And the CTA says unlimited access for, and then we've got $149, which has been crossed out and it's been replaced with $89. And I agree with Tim that this is actually pretty bad CTA, especially when you consider that this is the CTA which they're using on their homepage. So, why is there an evergreen, sale? This isn't going to be changing all the time. It says, crossed out the price and they've got a lower price there and it's got the word sale written on it. Why is that on the homepage? That's something which should be appearing on, a specific landing page for, 1 month only or something like that. The fact that they've got that on their homepage immediately makes me think, well, this probably isn't even worth the $89, is it? Because, otherwise you wouldn't need to be selling it in that way. So,
yeah, there's actually quite a few CTAs in this blog post that I'm really not convinced by at all. One of the problems that a lot of them seem to have is that they're asking to get started right now, immediately, before we have any info, which is okay if you're offering something super low risk. But if you're actually charging for something, then you've got to make sure that people have enough information in order to make that decision. So charging $89 for templates is cool, but you're probably not going to sell them above the fold on your homepage, right? There's probably steps in between there. So I'm not convinced by that at all. The other issue that I'm seeing on some of these, so there's an example, number 24 is Madewell, which is a clothing company. And when you get to their homepage, it doesn't really look like a homepage at all. It looks like an e-commerce product page. So there's a picture of clothing on the left. And then on the right, it says, I'm looking for clothes that'll travel anywhere. And then there's 2 buttons, but they don't look like buttons. It says, yes, take me there, or what's next? And I think what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to say, yes, I'm looking for clothes that will travel anywhere. and then you click on that and then you go through to a category page, or you'd say, what's next? And then you would see another type of clothing and you'd be offered the same choice. But the trouble is with this is that it's forcing us to do work to find the products that are going to be right for us. I've got to click through a bunch of options which aren't relevant for me before I can even see stuff that I might be interested in, which just seems completely stupid. And they're kind of, I don't know why it's an example of good here, because it seems rubbish to me. It seems like the exact opposite of what you'd want to do. What you want to do is show people the categories that they might be interested in, let them click on it immediately to go straight through to the stuff that they're most relevant with. If we're going to use a CTA, it needs to feel like a CTA that people are familiar with, or it needs to be brain dead simple. If it requires them to think or figure out what they're supposed to do, we're going to lose people. I'd imagine that engagement on these buttons will be super low. So I don't know why it's in this examples thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to play devil's advocate. I think I do agree with you, but I'm just going to play devil's advocate a little bit. So I'm wondering if this is a difference between somebody that's, looking for a specific item they're shopping, and, there are search options, and there's a mega menu at the top where they can find, categories. So they've got those options available. I wonder if this is the difference between somebody that's, shopping like that and knows what they're looking for, versus somebody that wants to live the Madewell lifestyle, wants to browse through the catalog, wants to check out what's new this season. And if somebody in that kind of situation may find that appealing, may say, hey, I don't know what I'm looking for. I want to browse the website and I want you to show me some stuff that you think's cool. What do you think to that? Do you think that could work in that sort of situation?
I still don't think they've executed it well. Interestingly, they've taken it off their website now, so this example must be a bit old. But I think I completely get what you're saying, and there are times when you want to play up on that browsing thing. You see sites like
CTA doesn't always need to be buy our product now. It can be, build a relationship.
And it can all be about, digging around. And I think you look at shops like Primark and TK Maxx and you see how people actually use those physical stores. And part of the appeal is kind of digging around and hunting. And there's this, I don't know what the chemicals are that are going off in people's brains while they're hunting around in the mountains of crap trying to find the stuff that they like. But you can definitely play into that with the CTAs. But I think when people walk over to a clothing rail, it's very obvious the sort of stuff that they're going to find. Whereas this, for me, it's not quite obvious. I know they're trying to gamify it, but if we just had, browse by category, new stuff, quirky stuff, crazy stuff, a bit like Airbnb does. Airbnb kind of categorizes their places by, random tree houses, or they might have quirky spa places, or freezing cold, or igloo, or stuff like that. So they'll be completely wacky, and they'll have stuff categorized by these other things, which you might not have thought about, but they're really interesting. So I think that's the way that you could get people browsing through without having to be like abstract or obscure about it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think there's definitely ways that they could improve it, like you say, in terms of that browsing experience. I think that's what they're going for, but yeah, I think that they could have done better with it.
And they must have been tracking, because they've changed it now. So
that is true. Yeah, we have to point out that they are no longer using this. So clearly they decided that it hasn't worked either. So last one, which I think's kind of interesting, is number 29, which is for charity water, asking for donations in order to bring clean water to people around the world. And so obviously their homepage is going to feature a donation button, but the way which they've done that is quite clever. So they've auto-filled the price for you, which is really good, because it means that they're suggesting that this is what other people are doing, and they've made it as easy as possible to choose the way in which you want to donate as well. So I think that one's quite interesting, just because ease of use is clearly what they've sort of focused on for that one, and I think they've done quite a good job with that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So you go on the site and it says give monthly, change lives all year long. 100% of your donation brings clean water to people in need. And then the CTA is how much you want to donate per month. And the automatic option is $60. And then you can choose whether you want to pay by card or PayPal. So I'm assuming that they've tested this and that they know their traffic is coming to the site specifically to donate. My concern or my question to them would be whether people are ready to donate immediately on the homepage. And if they're not, then there might be something else they could have there. And B, whether $60 a month is the right number to be in that spot. So there's some testing that has to be done. It's not going to be as simple as how many conversions you're going to get. You want to test it by how much monthly revenue you're generating testing these different options. But yeah, it's certainly, it's a nice looking form, isn't it? It's really simple. You understand it. The imagery is compelling as well. So
I think for me, the benefit of that $60 is that it's auto filled. So if you're not happy with that, then you can all you have to do is click in that box and you can change the amount. It means that it's, one less button if you're happy with that $60. And also, I wonder if psychologically it slightly increases the amount that people are paying, people are willing to pay. So somebody might go onto the website thinking, hey, I'll give them, $30, $40. And then they go, oh, well, most people give 60. Oh, okay, well, I'll do that then. So I wonder whether or not that's, if it helps in terms of bumping that up. But definitely it's something obviously they'd want to be testing. So, if they just put it at 50, would they find that they get more people that are willing to, click that button immediately than actually type in their own value? Or do they find that people get turned away by that? Definitely something I'd want to be testing.
Yeah, the whole anchoring thing and putting the most expensive wines at the top of the wine list to make the other ones seem cheaper. Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that. I'd love to see the analytics on all of these. Maybe they'll submit for a website review and we can.
Yeah, it would be really fascinating. And just to briefly mention charitywater.org, it looks like they've changed that. So that CTA isn't on their homepage anymore. So if you click the donate now button, you see a very similar page to that one, but actually their homepages have got a bit more information about, what the charity does. So I wonder if that's something which they've changed because they found that, like you say, people weren't ready to make that decision to donate or not based on.
Yeah, I mean, their website at the moment says every person on the planet deserves clean water. And then you're supposed to click a button that says, I agree. And then it takes you through to that donation page, which is super, super interesting because that's getting that micro commitment to say, yes, I'm with you, I agree. And then you've got to, you've got to be consistent. You've got to back up your agreement with a donation. So it takes you straight there. And interestingly now, they've prioritized the give once. So give once rather than pay monthly. So I wonder if they found that that's led to an increase in conversions as well. Very interesting. Definitely check out charitywater.org.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of, obviously it's a bit different because this is a donation model. They're not obviously selling, a product. I wonder whether or not that donate once option, they're highlighting that because that's essentially their lead generation done for them, isn't it? So if somebody is willing to donate once, even if it's a small amount, they can then send them a follow-up email saying, hey, you've done some really great work. If you were to sign up for a monthly subscription, think about all the amazing things you could do. I wonder if that's the kind of option that they're taking, that they're thinking about that in terms of lead generation.
Yeah, interesting. I was also going to say, I mean, one of the great things you can do, have a look at these things like the HubSpot CTAs thing that we'll share in the show notes, and then use a site like archive.org to go and have a look and see what CTAs these websites have used in the past. Because if they've got the same CTA and they've used it for like the last 3 years, then it's going to be working. If the one that's in the in the example, they're not using it anymore, then there's going to be a reason for that. So what you don't want to do is pick a CTA that you see in one of these blog posts sharing all these great CTAs, only to find that actually, do you know what, they're not even using this anymore because it turned out it didn't convert. Like HubSpot is not sharing these because it knows that they convert well. It's just sharing some examples that it likes for whatever reason. So you've got to be diligent and you've got to do your own research and do your own testing.
Yeah, there is always the kind of thing that you want to avoid, that there's always the possibility that, these are things which appeal to marketers because they think that they, are really smart and really clever. And actually, they're not, highest conversion ones. They're just kind of the ones which are interesting or quirky or appealing in terms of people that like copy. And that might be different to people that actually purchase things.
Yeah. The goal of this writer was to write an interesting blog post that gets shared. That's not necessarily the same as to share the highest converting CTAs with people. Good point.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this episode of the Exposure Ninja podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned some interesting facts about CTAs and what you should be doing in terms of getting a really good offer in there, focusing on the benefits. Maybe you've had some thoughts about visual design or some of the psychology in the text that you're using. And you've also had to think about, the differences between CTAs for websites or PPC or any other location. Been a really good episode. If you've enjoyed the Exposure Ninja podcast and you want us to help you out with some of your digital marketing, then head over to exposureninja.com/review. Claim your free website and marketing review, and we'll show you how we can help your business.
Awesome. Thanks, Lozz. This has been really good fun. We should do more of these one-on-ones, I think.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Sweet. Thank you, everyone, for listening.